Hi everyone, it's Lydia here. If you're watching this and not listening, you will see, you won't see very much because I had a bit of a studio mix up and I wasn't able to get into film this intro. But we move and we're going to bear with this momentary visual break as I give a little context to this episode. I've said it before and I will say it again, probably 1,000 times. I think the choice of whether you want to start a family or not is one of the biggest choices in the weird years. Whether you're 25 and you're thinking on the decision or you're 35 and you've not made that choice, it's a big one. And there comes with so many questions. Even after you make that decision, is starting a family actually an option for you? The actual process of starting a family is made much more complicated when you're not a heterosexual couple. Finances, legislation, access to medical treatment, all these things are obstacles that you have to navigate if you're a queer couple. And in this episode, I'm joined by the glorious Calypso Barnum-Bobb, and we get into the detail of their journey to hopefully soon start a family with their partner, Natalia. I followed Calypso on social media for a while. We kind of move in the same circles, and they're an expert on trauma-informed breath work and generally working with your body to access full emotions. Actually, if you've listened to the episode with Ryan, they just did a video on Instagram where Calypso does a session with Ryan on this breath work and he gets this massive release of feelings and energy. So if you have a minute, I would really recommend to go and check that out. I thought it was so interesting and it made me want to book in right away. They also run a beautiful community for queer and non-binary and trans people where they do retreats and self-discovery with their partner. This one is called People Like Us Retreats. So again, if you're interested in that, if you have friends who might be interested in that, go have a little look. I was honestly blown away by how immediately open and honest they were from the moment we met to record, and also by the deep knowledge that they've had to gain on fertility, sperm banks and IVF going through their journey to start a family as a queer couple. Honestly, they're like an absolute expert on this stuff. I'm sure they wouldn't actually say that themselves, but that's definitely how I felt being in the room with them. There's just so much knowledge, which is inevitable if you're trying to start a family as a queer couple. IVF is on the rise in the UK and also in heterosexual couples. Actually, at the moment, heterosexual couples still account for 89% of all IVF and donor insemination cycles. And this is mostly IVF, so only about 3% of couples going through that focused on using donor sperm. However, of people using donor sperm, the majority is made up by female same-sex couples and single women, making up about 89% of people who go for that option for obvious reasons, right? If you're going to start a family as a same-sex female couple or you're doing it on your own as a woman, you're going to need a donor sperm. In this episode, we go into the ups and downs journey of deciding to become parents in the first place and the reality of UK sperm banks, which I can tell you is quite dire, if I'm honest. Like, I didn't expect there to be so many hoops and regulations and restrictions on the amount of information that you get. You would think it's just an open book of choosing such a massive part of your child's life that you would get way more information than you actually do. I'm not going to lie, it feels a little bit stinky of patriarchy, especially when you compare the sperm donor process to the egg donation process. It's very, very different. And we get into the journey of planning IVF amidst the underfunded programme, which are not always prioritising queer couples. God, Calypso just radiates warm, calm and peaceful energy, which I really felt being in the room. And I think you're going to feel it throughout the episode. So if you're back and forth on the decision of whether you want to start a family or you're considering going for IVF or donor insemination as a couple or a solo person, then this episode is for you. But look, even if you're in the camp, I 100% do not want kids, I still think this will open your mind to the reality for queer couples in the UK, and it may help you navigate a friend who might be going through this in the future, or just give you a new perspective on what this process is like if you're not a heterosexual couple. You're really going to like this. It's very eye-opening, it's super informative, but also packed with, the real story of what Calypso and Natalia are going through. So let's get into it. If life feels like a whirlwind of clarity and confusion, pull up a chair. Welcome to The Weird Years. Well, Calypso, welcome to the Beige Couch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you here. You were just at a retreat last week, right?
I was. I run a community and kind of events and retreat crew with my partner called People Like Us. We host events and retreats that orbit self-discovery and movement for queer people. So we were in Ibiza. Having a lovely time on a gorgeous farm, connecting back to nature and ourselves. And yeah, it was gorgeous. It was very, very heart-filled.
Wholesome.
So wholesome.
It's so funny because it is that like duality of Ibiza. It's like
you can get
on one side all the clubs, and then the other side is this like super grounded, like earthy, hippie side that a lot of people don't know about.
Oh, like that is Nat and I, my partner, we are deep in that side of Ibiza.
Really?
We've been going to Ibiza together for like 10 years, and it started off on one side of the island, and we've just slowly like made our way more and more towards the north.
I love it.
Doing drumming things.
Drumming things?
Well, just like, you know, we're on the beach in Benaras drumming, we are meditating and having delicious food.
Breathwork and all that stuff.
Yes, lots of that.
And there's so much of that I would love to get into. I'm sure it'll be peppered across this conversation. But we're going to talk today about fertility journeys. It is honestly, I think, the biggest conversation that comes up in the weird years is A, do people want to have kids? B, when, how are any of us having kids? Because everything's so fucking expensive. And also, like, yeah, the actual journey of like, is it possible for all of us to do that if you choose to do it?
Yeah, there are so many, for any couple, there are so many decisions to be made. And then as a queer couple, it becomes even more intense. But I'm excited to have this conversation. I have learned everything that I've learned about what it means to start a family as a same-sex couple from TikToks, from podcasts, from YouTube channels. There is such little information out there. And, you know, I started a Substack last year to kind of share a bit about our journey. And I just feel like it's so important to have these conversations so that I can keep learning from people being like, oh, and also this. And also I can share everything that I've learned because my God, I feel like I could write a book about this.
You definitely should after this because it's a fucking minefield, isn't it?
It is. It's wild.
It's a crazy time. So I want to start at the beginning. Like, how did you even get to the point that you and your partner decided we want to have kids? Because that's like the stickiest bit, I feel.
It is. It's such an adult conversation, isn't it? Okay, for context, I grew up believing I was straight. So I had boyfriends and always imagined that my life would be marriage and kids in quite a heteronormative way. And so I think because of that, there's always been a knowing that I wanted children.
Right.
Nat, my partner, on the other hand, kind of knew that she was queer from a really young age, didn't come out until much later. But I think there was a lot more of a journey for her in like seeing herself with children, whether she actually could see herself having a family and whether she was going to honour her queerness and end up with a woman or not. And so not as soon as we met, because we were friends for a couple of years before we got together, I still had said boyfriend when we first met.
Did you?
So I was like deep in my relationship. We were together for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
A longie.
And, but the moment we started dating and, you know, entered our relationship, we always spoke about kids. We always spoke about the fact that we'd like to start a family one day. In many ways, quite naively, not really thinking about what that actually would look like,
right?
On lots of different levels. But it had always been a thread of conversation. And I think only in the past couple of years did we actually then start thinking, oh, do we want children? It was always like, we're going to have kids. And then the closer it got, I'm 31, my partner Nat's 37. So especially with her being slightly older, the conversations had to start happening because, you know, if we were wanting to utilise her eggs for fertility, it was, you know, everyone is putting the pressure on that you need to start sooner.
Yeah.
So I guess a couple of years ago, we started having more serious conversations. Again, I was still always very much in team, like, I know that I want kids. Nat has always and very openly been more like, I think I want kids, but that is quite scary and I love our life and what are the changes that might come from that? And, you know, we have lots of people around us that have children, all of them straight, and we see how much it changes your life. Like, you know, all of them love their kids dearly, but it's no joke. Like,
yeah,
we love practicing yoga together at 7 a.m. in the morning and like going for a walk to get coffee. And, you know, they sound like little things, but when your life has become a really beautiful one, it can feel like a big thing to sacrifice that. So over the past, I'd say about 2 years ago was the conversation of like, are we really doing this? But we kept coming back to the thing that was holding us back from it being a yes, and it was just fear. It wasn't really anything deeper than that. It was fear of change. And as we've explored the options more and more, which I'll share as much as you ask, there's a catalogue of information up here. We're like, yeah, we want a family. And even throughout though, full transparency, and I feel like more people need to be having this conversation. It's not every day that we're like, woohoo, we're going to start a family.
Yeah.
Some mornings we wake up and we're like, bloody hell. Like I go sit and meditate in my like little meditation room, and I sit in there and I'm like, God, one day this will be a baby's room and I won't have this space for myself.
Yeah.
And like those moments of doubt and of like fear of the freedom that you lose pops up all the time. So like we're grounded in our yes and are very much already started in the process.
Yeah.
But we still have our freakouts all the time, especially when we spend time with people's kids.
I think that's the thing, is that like as you get older, like I was chatting to one of my friends the other day and I was like, I kind of have this theory that it's better if you just say fuck it and do it really young, because I actually think the older you get, the more like, firstly you have nice stuff because you've earned some money and you're like, I'm spending it on myself. When you're young, like everything's shit anyway. Like you don't have any money, you don't really know what nice things are, so it's fine. And also like you know, you don't have that much to lose because it's like, well, you haven't necessarily gone out and done all these big adventures or like created this real routine. And yeah, I was saying to my friend, like, I actually think younger me would have, like, you're kind of fine either way. Like if you wait, you're fine. And if you don't wait, you're fine. I think that there's so much pressure to like make decisions really early or to like build your career. Again, the capitalist thing of like, you have to go and smash the glass ceiling because as a woman, you've been given this opportunity. And sometimes you feel like, well, I should, but actually you don't have to.
No, completely.
Yeah.
One of my best friends had her first baby at 18 and her second at 21. And they were old, but she's, you know, now 31 years old. She's got a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. And when I watch her with them, she has so much vitality. It's like she didn't get tired before she had her kids. So she's like playing football with them after school every day. And like there's this dynamic that is so beautiful. And for sure, she's had to grow up with them and she's had to sacrifice a lot. But she's like, oh my gosh, when I'm like, another one, she's like, no, I just got my life back and now I'm doing the bit that you did before.
Right.
But I think either end, there is so much beauty. I wouldn't change the way I've done it. I love the things that I've been able to experience and that the time that Nat and I have been able to have. But especially as a queer couple, there are no ROs. So you have to think about every single step. And I always joke that I think that makes us the most conscious best parents, because by the time our kid comes, we really want it. You know, you've made sure and you've checked and you've paid thousands and thousands of pounds and you're like very appreciative and loving. But I was on the phone to my mum the other day, kind of deciding some dates for when we should do certain things. And she was like, there's never going to be the perfect time. You can't keep waiting for the perfect time. Like, you just have to get rolling and like, you'll figure it out. So I think especially the perfectionist in me that's like, oh, and what about this? You can ruminate for way too long.
I completely relate to that. I think that I've always been that person of like, well, you know, I want to buy the house first. And it's like, well, you know, now I'm 33 and we don't have the house. So it's like, well, how long do I put this on and off for that kind of cookie cutter of what you thought, you know, having children would look like what the setup would look like.
Completely.
And I love what you say about like being conscious parents, because I've always thought this is like, you know, you hear some really horrible stuff about people and their views on same-sex couples having kids and like, oh, well, you have to have these two roles. And it's like, if someone has sat down and gone, this is 100% what I want, and actually there's data behind it. I read a study that said that that lesbian couples, that was kind of how they defined them in the data, that lesbian couples go into pregnancy and having children like way more consciously than other parents. I don't think they actually compared with same-sex gay men or with kind of, you know, genderqueer couples. But I was like, yeah, because as you say, there is no accidents. There's no like, oh, this has happened now, so we will make it work.
Yeah. You're constantly, you have to be in a pretty strong place as a couple. And this is not everyone. Don't get me wrong. There are probably some horrendous lesbian parents out there. Sorry if your parents are two of them. But there are so many hurdles that you have to jump. As a couple, you have to be really strong, because this has tested us in ways that we have never known before, because just the like constant like phone conversations with clinics and tests, and you're really rocked and you're really tested in your strengths as a couple, as well as your desire to have this baby. So yeah, and I think that there's also studies that have been done later in life that show and prove that children of queer families are happier later in life. There's studies that have been done on that, like when they've tested happiness. I can't remember what book. I've read so many books now. I can't remember which one it was, but I can find it out and share it with you, that later in life they've tested children from queer parent families, and they've been happy because there's this level of openness. They're often as well, there's this understanding where they came from, because it has to be explained. There's way more kind of integrity rooted in the whole thing. So
yeah, I read something in the UK that 1 in 3 lesbian women would like to have a child, but the number who actually are able to do that is much lower because of there's financial sides, there's the medical side. When you two decided, we want to have a kid, did you have various options in mind? What was that like? Okay, this is the ways we could do it.
Okay, so the thing that put a rocket up our asses into starting our process and being like, let's check this out, is there's quite a famous Instagram couple, influencers. They're called Whitney and Megan Wegan. They're like super pink millennial lesbian couple, really sweet. I don't know them personally, but they seem really sweet. And they were advocating and going to court to basically fight for the rights of same-sex female couples and genderqueer people who were wanting access to fertility treatment for free. And there was this whole thing, I think it was in like 2022, 2023, around then, where they were like, we have won, and we have basically, it's been confirmed that same-sex female couples will not have to pay to access treatment anymore. They'll get 6 free rounds of IUI on the NHS. So we were like...
in the UK?
In the UK.
Interesting.
So we were like, oh my God, amazing. We were like, we should go to our doctor straight away in case there's a 10-year wait list, and just let them know that this is something we're interested in. And so we went to our doctor and we explained, and they were like, oh, I don't really know loads of information about that, but yeah, I think that's right. And we lived in Brighton at the time. Very progressive, very on it. So they were like, yeah, sorted. This is definitely a thing. So we kind of we were like, we're not ready yet, but we just started going through the testing process. And we got referred to the hospital for like final checks, again, all via the NHS. And it wasn't until we got to maybe 6 months later down the line, after several blood tests, loads of checks, for an ultrasound, where the doctor then let us know that that wasn't actually the case, and that there were only a few ICBs, which are kind of like areas that are governed by different, when people talk about a postcode lottery, essentially. It's that there are only a handful that have adopted that, and it's basically a recommendation from the NHS to these ICBs over the course of 10 years that they can adopt if they want to. So right now, I probably last checked about 6 months ago when we ruled that option out for us. But I think when I checked, there were 3 or 4 ICBs in the whole of the UK that were offering free IUI for same-sex couples. For all of the others, there are varying degrees of requirements. So you have to have self-funded 6 rounds of IUI yourself, some 12 rounds of IUI yourself. So although it was super exciting and we were like, wow, it actually was really disappointing. We spent the best part of the year thinking that we were going to be able to access this treatment for free, only to find out that that wasn't the case. And that's not spoken about. I just finished reading an amazing book, actually, that I recommend to any queer person who is thinking about becoming a parent or is already on their parenthood journey, that an amazing queer mother gave to me. It's called The Queer Parent, Gay to Z, I think it is. It's by a queer woman and a gay man who both have families. And there was even a quote in the book later of somebody sharing their excitement for starting a family in the UK because this law's come about. So start the process is what I'll say, to find out and look into it in your area, whether you are eligible for that. For us, it just wasn't an option. We were going to have to self-fund, which we kind of got over, and we were like, fine. We're glad we looked into it, because that is what started our process. And then kind of going down that rabbit hole of, okay, cool, so now we know that information. what do we want to do with that next? How do we want to move forward? And
we should just clarify IUI, because I think loads of people know IVF. I honestly didn't. I'd actually never even heard of IUI until I started researching for this episode.
Okay, we're going to school.
Yeah, educate me.
I also probably am not gonna. I'm not scientific, so the words probably won't come out right. But IUI essentially is intrauterine insemination, where essentially they are turkey-baster style at the time of ovulation, inserting sperm into your uterus to see if it sticks. Exactly the same as if you were having sex in a heterosexual way when you're ovulating.
Right.
So it's less invasive. You can do it medicated, where you can stimulate kind of egg growth before. You can do it completely unmedicated. So it's way more natural and it's way more affordable to access. I think on average, one round of IUI costs anywhere from like £800 to £1,200. That's not including sperm if you're using a donor. So it's kind of like an accessible way to start. It's also only workable for certain people if you know that you have your fertility and like egg reserve and uterus health is in a certain, a particular way. You know, there are some people that it just wouldn't work for.
Yeah,
and you should
PCOS, endometriosis,
completely,
all of those things.
Completely. So that's what IUI is. IVF is way more medical, and it's most people know about. So you go through a process of stimulating egg growth. You then go through an egg collection, where they then are taking eggs that grow in all of your follicles. So usually you would just have one egg that grows and drops every cycle, but when you go through,
only from from
one side. Yeah.
I didn't know this.
And they alternate left.
Yeah, they alternate
right?
left and right. So this was so interesting to me that I learned, because when you're a kid, everyone's always just like, oh, you get pregnant. Like, I remember taking the morning after pill when I'd like forgotten 2 in my 7-day-a-week packet of my Gederel or whatever Yasmin that was on back in the day.
Yeah.
Throwback to that. We gave everyone blood clots, and they were like, oh, we need to get rid of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, going to get the morning after pill, and like the education of like, no, it's actually fucking hard to get pregnant. You have 1 shot a month.
Yeah.
You have to like be inseminated within, I think, 3 days of ovulation, and it drops from either ovary. So if you have 1 ovary that's just a bit dodge, you've missed that month.
Yeah, completely. And I actually only fully realised that when we went for an internal ultrasound at a private clinic slightly later in our journey. And she was doing the internal ultrasound, and we could see on the screen inside, like she was showing us up into our ovaries and the different follicles. And she was like, oh, look, and that one's really big. So that's the one that your egg is going to grow in this month, and that's where your period is going to come from. And I was like, oh my God. And like, I have a small fibroid on one side, and it really taught me that was on my left side, I think. And I was like, oh, so because I was like, it's kind of every other period that's painful. And it's because when it comes from my left side, and that's the side of my fibroid, it's painful. So there's so much.
Wow.
I was fascinated, and I've gone down this rabbit hole. But yeah, IVF is essentially, they're extracting the eggs, once as many as they can that grow in the follicles. They then get taken out of the body, and sperm is inserted into, they're different. Usually in the UK, it's actually just dropped into the dish and the sperm finds its way to the egg. There's also something called ICSI where they can insert it in, which is much more common in the US. But yeah, essentially then you wait 5 days to see if it develops to a stage of an embryo that is viable and that will last and that is healthy. Also, actually before that, after the eggs are taken out, not all of them may be mature. Right. So say you get 10 eggs, maybe 8 of them are mature, then you have 8 eggs, then maybe 4 of them make it to embryos that last, that get to the day 5. And then the second part of IVF is then doing that embryo transfer. So you look at the embryos, they'll usually look at the quality, and then they put one of those into your uterus. Again, that person, whether it's the same person or the opposite, which is reciprocal IVF, which is what we're doing, which I'm also happy to share more about. You will then insert that, the person will inject and again get their womb sticky, like ready to receive. I know, sticky womb, ready to receive this embryo, and then they will do the embryo transfer at that set time, and then it's the 2-week wait that you would usually wait to find out if you're pregnant. So yeah, it's quite a process.
Okay. What's interesting for me is that you said, so did you both go and have scans to make sure that everything worked? Yeah.
So after we found out that IUI was not, well, we were going to have to pay for IUI, we kind of did nothing then for about maybe a year, I think. I think, was it a year? Maybe. I've lost like track of time. Maybe it was 6 months where we were kind of like, what are we doing with this information? Like, how do we feel about this?
Yeah.
And we were just kind of figuring out what that meant. And in that time, the whole other can of worms that we opened up was about donors. We'd always thought that we were going to use a donor from a sperm bank. That's kind of the status quo, I guess, unless you know somebody or you have somebody in your life that's offered, you go via a sperm bank. And in this time of exploring, our whole relationship, we'd like spend every now and then on a Sunday night, we'd be like, should we open the sperm bank and go through and have it's like shopping. It's like,
is it fun to look at? Is it like Tinder?
It's way less sexy than Tinder. Way less like you're literally in like an archaic website that like is desktop only, or like it's way less slick. The user experience isn't as great. But yeah, we would spend like over the course of our relationship, we'd keep our eyes on donors that we thought we liked the look of, because the black and mixed race donor options in the UK are nil pois. I think there was one in the UK when we were last looking on a sperm bank. So we were always going to be looking internationally, and there's certain international sperm banks that work with specific UK sperm banks. So depending on the clinic that you want to go to, you're looking at specific sperm banks. So yeah, in this time of kind of figuring out what we were doing, we were exploring our sperm options. And in that time, we then also were like, maybe we should also both just go and get checked again, because it's been a while since Nat had her internal, and it wasn't fully comprehensive because they kind of stopped it when they knew that we weren't, as in like we didn't continue there were other tests that we didn't do after we found out that it wasn't funded. So we both went to get checks because we were like, there was actually an offer on. Yeah, it's actually quite barbaric. Like, it's so weird when you think about it. There was an offer on, I remember one summer, and it was like, August offer, 2 checks for the price of 1 or something like that.
2 cervix.
Exactly.
The price of 1.
Literally.
Love that. Bring your girls, bring your partners.
Come on round. But yeah, it was something, it wasn't quite that good of a deal. But we were like, let's just both go and get checked out so we know exactly where we are. Because we'd also just spent all of our time assuming that Nat would go first because she's older.
Right.
And I'd never had any checks. And we were like, oh, maybe we should, they've got this offer on, so we'll both go and get checked out. And that was when we kind of found out a little bit more about both of our egg reserves, both of our, like the quality of our, like not the quality actually, because you can't find out anything about the quality, but like, you know, that our womb was okay, if we had any fibroids and all of that jazz, which I actually found a really empowering, really empowering situation. We only did it, actually, I remember what gave us the kick up the backside. One of my friends is single and wants a family, and so she was looking into egg freezing, and so she went to get it checked. And when she went, she found out that she actually had a lot less follicles than somebody her age might usually have. And so they were talking about egg freezing as an option, and that was for us, like, oh crap, we should probably go and get this checked out too. It can be scary, but if you know that you really want children in the future, go and get this check.
Yeah.
They cost around, it's like a women's MOT or something, fertility MOT. I think at the London Women's Clinic, they're about £500, which, you know, isn't cheap, but also for peace of mind of knowing where you're at.
Yeah.
I found really, really helpful, and it gave us a scope of a timeline scope, because in Nat's case, they were like, you know, things aren't bad, but it's good that you're getting going. So for us, it was like, okay, so we're getting going. And I think sometimes that can help, you know, when you're in that indecision and we're waiting for that perfect time, and you're like, is it the right time? Is it not the right time? For us, we had a human design reading at Glastonbury last year. And I remember it was after that, we both went in, we had separate readings with this person, and we were talking about next steps. And I was just like, we know, like, when I know I want something, I do it. I'm quite both of us, we're very, like, some might call us impulsive. We moved down to, we like went to check out if we liked Brighton, and like ended up putting an offer in and renting a flat straight away when we were there. We just like, we're like, if it feels right, we'll do it. And we weren't getting this feeling of when to start. And this, in our reading, the person was like, just take the next step forward, and the next step forward then might give you some clarity about whether now or not. And that was such helpful advice, when you're in that indecision. So we had that appointment, and then that was like, okay, cool, we're getting rolling.
And ultimately, like, knowledge is power with all of that stuff. I think so many people either find out they have PCOS or they have endometriosis or any of these things. And if you know that stuff when you're younger, you can just make like a more informed decision.
Yeah.
I'm very much on the side of like, the more data you know about your body, the better. And also then you can advocate for yourself as well. Like, it's really hard to, you know, especially go to a GP. Like I was looking at, on average for someone my age, I'm 33, it takes people 6 months to a year to conceive naturally in a heterosexual couple. So, you know, if you often don't even get taken seriously with any concerns unless they're like, have you tried for 12 months?
Yeah.
Have you been peeing on the little sticks? Like, it's very kind of computer says no. I was reading that queer couples, the IUI thing, often fertility can actually be a bit of a detriment to you because you have to show self-funded rounds. Yeah. And it's like, well, if you're fertile enough to do that, they presume that you'll fund it yourself and not actually move you forward with any kind of, you know, supported help.
Yeah, that's what they are like. That's what the argument is right now, you know. And this is the battle. It's like, you know, if you are in a heterosexual relationship, you get assistance with reproduction if you're not conceiving naturally. So the moment you have to pay for treatment, you get that assistance. So yeah, you have to self-fund those rounds of IUI to prove that you're subfertile before they will support you. So yeah, hopefully that's changing, but we've still got a way to go.
So did you try the IUI?
No, we literally were like, I started to go down the donor road, and that's where it took us off-piste, and that's why we have taken so long. Come back to donors. So we're going to go back to the donor chat. So in this time of getting our tests and looking into different options, we started to explore donors, and what happened? We said we were looking for our donor, and then a good friend of ours, one time we were at drinks, and so we were all a bit tipsy, and we were talking to them about donors, and he was like, I'd be a donor. And we were like, huh? But we were all wavy, you know, we were wavy. We were like, oh my gosh, amazing, that's great, like, you really fit the brief of what we're looking for. He was like, yeah, no problem, cool, fine. Kind of left it at that, didn't really say anything. Like, we were like, that was a conversation last night, I wonder if that was for real. We don't even know if we were for real. Like, and then a few weeks later, we were with this person again, and they were like, I know that we were a bit waved, but I'm actually serious. I definitely would be open to exploring that option with you. And so we were like, oh wow, okay, we've never thought about using a known donor before. We've always just thought about using a sperm bank. Let's explore what that might feel like for us. And I guess originally we always thought we would use a sperm bank kind of for like the protection of our family unit. When I look back, it was a bit more of a like, okay, well, you know, then we're the family and there is this donor, and in the UK it's a legal requirement that all donors that all children have access to their donor information when they turn 18.
Interesting.
And so we were like, you know, that's great, we can kind of have our family, and you get comprehensive information about the donor.
Does that mean contact, or does that mean like health records?
So in the UK, it's a legal requirement that they are able to have their contact details when they're 18, because anonymous donors, it's proven, is really negatively, it really negatively affects children to never know where they've come from, which I'm such an advocate for people knowing in general, whether it's, you know, sooner or later. In the US and a few other countries, you can still do completely anonymous donors, which is wild. It also doesn't really work anymore because of things like 23andMe and Ancestry. People can kind of connect the dots. So yeah, you can find out at 18, and we were always like, yeah, great, we can kind of pick this person. We'll have the information that you get is like, you know, age, height, usually get a baby photo, maybe an adult photo if they're from an international sperm bank. In the UK, a UK sperm bank, you get no photos.
Wow.
Any UK sperm bank, if it's sperm from a UK donor, there won't be photos. Only UK sperm banks that have international donors on might show photos.
That's so interesting.
So you don't see a photo. You can literally just have, you know, information about where they're from. Again, when you go into like European sperm banks or US sperm banks, you kind of get more and more the further away you go. In certain sperm banks, you get a voice recording and a handwritten letter. So we were like, yeah, cool, that feels fine. Then this friend offered, and we were like, oh, what does that feel like? And then we were like, wow, it would be really amazing for our kids to just be able to know where they're from, and for us to know, and then it started to raise questions of, well, actually, we're so conscious about who we have in our life and our friends and our, the people that we're close to. It's kind of wild that we don't know who this person is that's making up 50% of our child's DNA. And yes, the children can find out when they're 18, but like, what if they're not? What if they're a monster then?
Yeah.
What if they're, And then that documentary came out, the one where the guy has 1,000.
Oh my God.
Kids.
The fertility doctor in the US.
No, this wasn't the fertility doctor.
Oh.
That's another one. This was the, I think he was a Dutch donor that had gone round to multiple different sperm banks as well as privately to couples, and was like a mass donor, and there are hundreds of donor siblings, which is obviously really dangerous, one in terms of if they're in a similar place, they grow up together and people can date their people that are their siblings that they don't know, but also his reasons for doing it. And they found these other super donors, they called them, I think, were doing it for like essentially ethnic cleansing.
I was going to say, it sounds a little bit white supremacy.
Absolutely.
And a little bit like
absolutely.
I think my genes should be out there in the world.
Completely.
Right.
So there were all of these things that were unfolding, and we were like, oh, wow, actually, we would really love to have an own donor. But in the process, we figured out that this friend was just too close of a friend. We love them too much in the sense that they're really integrated into a lot of our life. And we were like, I think it would be best that we both kind of agreed, like, this doesn't feel 100% right. But then we'd open the can of worms of wanting an own donor. And we'd done all of this research that really showed that a child knowing who their donor is has massive positive impact. So then we're like, well, what the hell do we do now? Like, we don't know anyone else.
And also you can't really just like, well, maybe you can, but, blast on Instagram of like, hey.
Right. So I was like, right, I started just a Substack where I was just sharing a bit more about our journey. And I was like, if I put it out there that this is a process that we're going through, rather than just straight away being like, hi, TikTok, we're looking for this donor, are you this person? But what we decided to do was write a letter. So we wrote a letter to we were like, hey, we are Calypso and Natalia, this is a little bit about us, we're looking for a donor to help us start our family. We were really clear on like the involvement that we were looking for, somebody that was like a uncle figure, or like somebody that we would catch up with on special occasions, that we would still be donating via clinic, because for legal rights, if you don't do your donation via clinic, the person who is the non-carrier of the baby, the woman who's the non-carrier of the baby, it wouldn't be the legal parent. That donor would, because there's no way to prove that it wasn't just having sex and it being like, he would have rights as the child's father essentially. But if you go via clinic, then you're covered.
That's interesting in itself, because, I imagine for some people where finances are like a real challenge, you would want to find like, any way possible, right?
And lots of people start families without home insemination, and it works. For us, it was just like, first of all, we're both queer. Like, I don't need to be anyone. I don't need to be handling any substances. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason.
Too DIY.
There's a reason that I chose to be with a woman. That's not the only one, but it was in there.
Yeah.
And so we were just like, and then just the legal side of it. You can write up contracts, but they're not legally binding, and so the second parent would have to go through adoption. And we were just like, no, we would prefer to go via the clinic. And so we decided that what we were going to do is we were going to send this to any people that we knew that we thought might, and we just felt like it was way more, back in the day, if you were inviting somebody to something, you wrote a letter and you posted it through their door and they had time to think about it and then receive it. And we wanted to, rather than just like write it in a message, write a letter. I made it on Canva and saved it as a PDF. And then we sent it out to a few people that we thought, either you could be great or maybe you'll know somebody that could be great. And then we also sent it to our closest circle of friends and just said, please send this on to anyone that you think fits the brief. And it was just an invitation to, meet up, maybe get a coffee and chat. And we had a couple of people come through.
Wow.
And so we met up with this one guy particularly, and we went for coffee in Covent Garden and in this cafe. Like, I remember it so clearly. It was literally like going on a date. It was
always so weird to go to Covent Garden.
I know. We were like, where can we meet?
Feels so formal.
He was like, South. We were like, Covent Garden. He was from London too, but I don't know. I just remember it so clearly. And we went there, and yeah, we both, I guess, we all brought questions with us and things that we wanted to ask. And we, like, it was lovely. I remember at the end, we took a selfie, like we were like, oh. But the moment I left, particularly, I was way more into this idea of writing a letter and finding a donor. Now my partner was way more like, I'm a bit scared, you know, like this is a lot of risk. You know, we're going to get to know this person, but also at the same time, you know, she was more like, sperm banks are feeling safer to me, but I had just gone so far down the rabbit hole. I was like, I can't do it now. I can't. Like, you know, you don't get up-to-date health information from that donor. You get information when they donate and you do genetic testing. But if 2 weeks after they left that clinic for donation, they had a heart attack, they're meant to tell the clinic, but they wouldn't have to.
Right.
And so for any medical form that we'd ever fill in for our children where it says, do they have a history of X? We'd always have to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so for their mental wellness, for their physical wellness, for, you know, just when I think about the kind of family unit and like experience we want to have, it didn't feel aligned. And I respect it for anyone that chooses it. But for us, or for me, at first, I was like, this is a no. So we met this guy. And we'd had someone else that was also like keen, but it didn't feel right when we messaged them. And after we left, I remember having this like pounding. We got on the tube, my heart was pounding. I felt so anxious.
Wow.
So anxious.
Even though you've been so into the idea.
Yeah, I was like this. I haven't felt anxiety since I left my 9-to-5 job.
Wow.
That feeling in my body of like...
God, Jill.
Sorry,
just to pause for that. Fucking hell, killing it.
I was just like, I don't remember this. As soon as it started happening, I was like, oh my God, this feeling in my body. I forgot what this feels like. This is... something's not right. But I think because I'd been hyping that up and being like, this is a great idea, I was still like, and then I was just like, no. We woke up, we were going for dinner with some friends that night and we hadn't really told anyone, but I remember one of my sisters got in the car and one of my best friends got in the car and we told them and I was like, it doesn't feel right. It just feels like there is too much responsibility on us to know that this guy is going to be right. And, you know, there were just certain things that he was asking that naturally he respected that he would be a donor and would be the parents, but he was like, you know, would my family be able to meet them? And all of that is fair, but it just brought up all of a sudden a load of like, oh my God, there are so many layers to this.
Well, someone who in theory is like in your life to a degree, you know, I always say that with couples, it's like, you can marry someone, you can buy a house, but the minute you have children with someone, like that person's in your life forever. And even though you're not having children with that person, there is like that right after the age of 18 that, you know, your child could choose to have that person in their life.
Yeah. And we always wanted some involvement at all, like completely. But it was just all of a sudden there were just all of these things. And I was like, we just really would love to have some professional holding in this. Like we just want someone to hold us. There are surrogacy agencies in the UK. There are egg donor agencies in the UK. Yeah. There are no sperm donor agencies in the UK. There are no agencies in this country that connect you to known donors. Doesn't exist.
Wow.
And it doesn't exist mainly because it's illegal to pay donors, sperm donors, but it's illegal to pay egg donors, it's illegal to pay surrogates, but you can heavily gift them and cover expenses. But nobody's set it up. So obviously I went down the rabbit hole and was like, well, I'm going to set up a known sperm donor agency in the UK. And then I was like...
sorry, what would that mean? That you could meet them like in person in the way that you do with an egg or a...
Yeah, it would be. So there are organisations that have a catalogue of people that are open to being surrogates and they might put on events where surrogates come to and people who are looking for surrogates come to and they get to connect. And there's lots of laws in the UK around advertising that and there's lots of things that are kind of, in a way, good because it's protecting and not turning it into a massive monetization, but also it just means things are done way more shadily. And there are like different websites where people who want to donate their eggs and be known egg donors can do that. But there is nothing other than sperm banks in the UK, which is anonymous until 18. You can't know who they are. You can't know any information.
That's so weird.
Nothing. In the US, there is this amazing agency called the Seed Scout, and it was set up by a lesbian couple who were going through the exact same process as Nat and I, and were like, hold up a second, we want to be able to know who this like donor is and have up-to-date health information throughout their life, for them to have some kind of relationship with our child but still be legally protected as the parents. So they started up this agency, I think only a couple of years ago, and I'd seen them on TikTok and I was like, they look amazing. It's also fucking expensive. Like,
right. I was going to say, because often you hear with queer couples, they're looking at like Eastern Europe or they're looking down like Mexico, Central America, like these places where, let's say, it's a little bit less murky on the intention perhaps behind some of the people who are going forward to put themselves out there for it. You don't think of America. I would presume America's like, you can't even like get a tissue in an American hospital without paying $500.
Yeah, it's wild. So we found out about this donor agency, and they're not linked to the clinic, but they basically have a catalogue of probably now 500 to 600 guys. A large percentage of them are also queer guys, which a lot of sperm banks don't allow gay men to donate which is a whole nother backwards thing, even though they do testing. And so, yeah, they have a library of guys, super diverse, because also sperm banks are so undiverse in having people with different ethnic backgrounds. And so as this has all been unfolding and meeting with people, and actually I think even before we got that, I had seen the Seed Scout and I've been sharing with Nat about it, and we'd been like, oh my God, wouldn't that be amazing if we could do that, if we could pay for that, like wouldn't that be great? But then also we then started looking, I reached out to them just to find out, and they were like, yeah, we can't send sperm over to the UK, like because you've paid for it and it's illegal to pay for it. We looked at so many different loopholes and we're like, we can't do it. But the further and further we went down this rabbit hole of trying to connect with guys, we then went for dinner with another one of our best friends. Oh no, a group of friends. I remember we were at their house and we were talking about it, and they were like, well, what's the dream? And we were like, well, the dream is to use the Seed Scout. Like the dream is to use this amazing agency. They have a beautiful process where you share what you want. They send you a bunch of profiles, you narrow it down, you get more information. You then narrow it down to your top 2. You have, if we were in the States, you could meet them, or you have Zoom calls with them. It's like you get interactions with them, you see if there's a vibe. And so we were like, the dream is that. And they were like, so do it. They were like, you will figure it out. They were like, we know you two. You figure everything out. When you want something, you'll figure it out. Like, yes, it's massive. And they were all like, we'll support you. Start a GoFundMe. We'd all love to like donate and help. And I think that hearing that back from, like, I remember one of our closest friends, we were like, yeah, you're right.
Of course, yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And we were like, we know if we're going to pour money into anything, even money we don't have yet, into anything, surely the well-being of our future children should be top of that list.
Yeah.
And so we decided to go ahead with it. And we were like, fuck it, let's go. We called them. We were like, so, and that meant us having to go to America for treatment.
Right.
So the cost of IVF in America is significantly more too. So it meant everything was amplified. But we spoke to our family too, and they were like, if we could support in any way, they didn't have loads to give us, but they were like, we're all behind you if this is what you want to do. And so we made the commitment in like November last year. And so we've been going through this process to connect with the donor, and we now have an amazing donor. He is incredible. He is like the most amazing guy. And yeah, he's going through the process of donation, and we are going to be going to the States later this year to start our process of
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is so exciting. One thing, if you don't feel comfortable sharing this, then absolutely don't. But when we think about the fertility costs, right, I think in the UK, as you're saying, that the IUI is from like 600 to 1,200 per round. I think IVF can be about $2,000 all the way up to like 6. I think it can be pretty pricey. When you're looking at America, are we talking like 50K plus?
So, okay, first of all, IUI is obviously significantly less. The success rate is significantly lower. So I think there's like, because it's the same as just like one shot when you are fertile,
right,
versus like all of these carefully timed things and medication to amplify the growth. So, we know people that have done IUI and got pregnant first time, second time, incredible. By the time you get to third time of IUI, it would have been the same. It's cost pretty much to do a round of IVF. Right. And then you kind of have embryos if you're wanting future children. So you're kind of like, so IUI is a more affordable way to access fertility treatment for some people, and will be a cheaper way of starting a family. But often if you weigh it up, we got a lot of advice, and it was like, maybe going straight to IVF actually sometimes can save money, because you might do 2 rounds and then 3 rounds and then be on to IVF anyway. IVF, yes, is from around like they say $2,500 to $5,000, but that's with no medication and with none of your appointments and checks and tests in between. So really, you're looking at like $5,000 to $10,000 minimum, really, in the UK for IVF. We basically found we spoke to the Seed Scout, who were so helpful. Like, they're an amazing couple who, like, one of them's a lawyer and the other's a paediatrician, so they've come together to create this thing. And they were like, we were like, we need like a low cost clinic, and we're not going bougie. We can't go fancy. I was like, we used to be NHS. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
We do not need top tier standards.
So they'll supply it to wherever you choose the...
There are certain clinics that they work with they can pretty much do it to most clinics, I think. So yeah, we just, what's the time? Are we way over?
We're close. But...
Okay, fine. I could tell that I've been chatting for a while.
This could go on for 2 hours.
I know. So yeah, they just helped us figure out like different recommendations of clinics. They had another couple before who had wanted to do it as low cost as possible. So there's a clinic in the US called CNY, and it's basically like a chain of clinics, and their whole brand is being affordable IVF. So their IVF packages are more in line with the UK IVF prices. They're not less, for sure, but they're more in line. And it's just because it's way less personalised. Similar to working in an NHS system, you know, we have to log our comments and questions for a portal rather than having like one personal doctor. We don't have one assigned doctor that will definitely do our treatment. It will be whoever the doctor is on the day, and they have a library of incredible doctors that we have there. And we've been able to have consultations with amazing doctors actually that have given us such great advice, but it's almost by chance. You know, we got on a call with a great doctor and he was like, the protocol that they've put you on, I don't vibe with it. He was like, I'm a fertility, forensic IVF forensic doctor. So usually people come to me when they're having problems and I correct it. But he's like, I'm going to correct yours from the get. So it's way less personal and trusting. So I think, our IVF with them will cost again between 5 to 10 grand.
Okay.
Maybe slightly more. We're probably looking at more like 12-ish, and that's for one round. Our sperm, also, I'm so here for transparency. Using the seed scout and that sperm donor process for us is costing us £15,000.
Wow.
So the beauty of it is
that one round, or do you get...
So we get that donor for all of our children.
Oh, amazing.
And he's only able to donate to maximum 2 other families.
Oh, that really takes off that risk of the super donors, right?
Exactly. And we get updates from him every single year. We also update him on the children. We get to have him as involved or as little as we want. The medical updates are what we get every year. And we'll always know if he does donate to 2 other families, they have to be through the Seed Scout, and we'll know who they are. So we'll know who our kids' donor siblings are, and we'll be able to have a relationship with them. They also have a premium package that's even more, but that donor is just for you. So yeah, if anyone has, I'm such an advocate for them. It's crazy. Last night we were literally looking at, because we're going to the States for treatment, and it's like in a very obscure place in upstate New York, in Syracuse, and we were looking at our accommodation, and like even that, everything is just wild, you know. And it's a lot, you know, it's a lot of pressure to be earning that extra to put towards it, but you know, it's a phase of our life. And one thing that I realised the other day, which is actually really beautiful, Nat and I started People Like Us a couple of years ago. And essentially all of our profit for People Like Us is being fed into our fertility journey, with lots of others too. But it's like, what was really beautiful was that it feels like the queer community are helping us build
paid for it.
Helping us start our queer family. And I felt like that was really special because, you know, we were like, how are we going to make this money? And we were like, well, we'll both work for ourselves. Let's serve and help people and support people, and that money can be poured back into this. But if anyone's sugar daddy out here watching wants to donate some cash,
we need to get them as a sponsor of the podcast. I'll just lie about how many people are listening. I'll be like, we're getting 20,000 a day.
Just someone bring, if you want to.
We'll do an episode 2 with Calypso. And that maybe, if they want to pay for the rest of your treatment.
It's Pride Month. Like, come on. It's Pride Month. Donate to a good
Stop
cause.
Changing your fucking logo on Instagram.
Come.
Donate to some fertility.
For sure.
No. So you'll go over there, you'll do that. And then I guess if it's successful, which hopefully it is, then you just come back to the UK and do the journey as...
Okay, yes. Actually, there's a big thing that I've not mentioned. So we've decided to do reciprocal IVF. Reciprocal IVF is where you are taking the eggs and creating embryos from one of you, but then the other person carries the baby. It's a really beautiful way of you both being able to be involved. And again, in the UK, reciprocal IVF costs a lot more than regular IVF or IUI. At this clinic, it doesn't cost any more.
Well, it doesn't really make sense that it would cost more, does it?
Yeah.
It's coming out of... Like, it comes out and it goes in.
Yeah, the only thing that we have to pay for is I have to have the tests done so they know what wagwan, basically.
Okay.
But like, I have to get those tests done anyway if I want to carry later down the line. So we have made the decision after lots of back and forth that I will be carrying our first baby. And,
really?
Yeah, Nat will be using that sex and I'll be carrying.
See, that to me, as someone who's always been so like pregnancy averse, I've always been like, I'm pretty sure I want kids, but so terrified of pregnancy that in my head, I've always had the very like unnuanced view of like, oh, well, you could just adopt and no one has to do it. But to actually choose to do that is...
I know. Nat,
noble.
my partner Nat is way more in your camp. She's like same as you. She's always been very up and down as to whether she wants to carry, and that was actually almost a bit of a stop in our journey. It was like, do I, don't I? And then a few months ago I was like, why don't I just carry first? We can do this reciprocal thing because it doesn't cost more there. And then once I've been pregnant, you can see if you want to do it. I'm one of these people that is like, I dream of being pregnant. I can't wait to be pregnant.
Oh my God, I'm so happy for you.
Wait to give birth. I'm like so excited about it all. So yeah, we'll be going later this year. We're actually not doing it all in one trip because if we had 12 hours we'd go into it, but essentially we're going to do our egg retrieval and then we'll be back there next year just because we've got things that are happening that I can't be pregnant for.
Right.
We'll go back next year to get pregnant.
Amazing. Well, we'll have to do a follow-up on that.
We will.
That is so... Oh, I'm so excited for you. That's going to be awesome, especially like going into it so consciously of like, this is 100% what we want and excited about it.
I mean, I'm sure we'll mess it up in lots of ways, so definitely won't be a perfect journey, but...
Yeah, everyone does. Okay, I'm going to finish this with a yes or mess, which feels very trivial after such a deep and interesting conversation. But these are 5 rapid-fire questions, which if you're into it, you say yes. If you think it's a mess, you say mess.
Cool.
So the first one is, one parent staying at home full-time while the other works.
I say yes if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Mess if you don't. Like
for you?
For me, no, I think I actually think I have a very big trad wife in me. Deep in my core.
You're going to be like Nara Smithing.
Literally. She's pregnant again, you know that?
I know, number 4.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, I think I already know that once I have this baby, I am going to be obsessed and that everything that I thought was important before will not be important anymore. So I know that I will want to continue to like serve and coach and hold space. But I very much imagine my like child and children being integrated into things. So I'm all for it if it is an empowered choice.
Nice. Getting a tattoo of your kid's name.
Absolutely, yes.
You actually have quite a lot of tattoos.
I've got loads of tattoos. I've got my siblings' names on me, so I'm like, yes.
Love it. This is a bit of a sidebar, but using astrology to justify ghosting a friend or partner.
Mess. I'm not into ghosting.
Fair. Moving in with a partner after 6 months.
I'd be a hypocrite if I said a mess because Nat and I lived together before we were even a couple. So just, it came back to bite us later and we had to move out and live separately for a while.
Really?
Because we were like, way too codependent and we had to reestablish our relationship. So I'd actually say mess because if you do it, it just might come back to bite you later.
Nice advice. And the last one is crowdfunding IVF.
So I went on such a journey with this and we haven't. And I think there was a lot of pride in my not wanting to ever crowdfund. And that was always way more like, we can crowdfund. Like, we shouldn't have to pay for this. So like, let's get people to help us. And I was almost like, I don't know if I want people to pay for my children. And probably just a bit of ego, like, why can't I fully afford to just like reel the peas off yet?
Yeah.
So I think I'm yes. I think if somebody I knew was crowdfunding and I could give them some money towards it and it meant they could start their family, then I would be so up for that. So I think it's probably just my internal resilience to receive coming up.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other episode.
That's a whole other episode.
And that's on childhood. Thank you so much for being here. I loved it.
Thank you.
It was a great chat. Yeah, thank you also for being so honest with the process. I know so many people listening, like queer couples and not queer couples, this will be eye-opening to people and more people need to fucking know about this because it is actually like a travesty and not in any way jovial. Like, it's a serious thing that needs to change in the UK.
Yeah, completely. When I started my Substack last year, that I've abandoned, but you're more than welcome to go back and have a read on it. It was for queer people wanting to start a family, but also for straight people that want to understand the process and be able to support their queer friends and family members more, just to understand it a little deeper. So my DMs are always open. If anyone has any questions or wants to chat about this kind of stuff, I'd love to have the conversation. And yeah, let's just educate because it's so needed.
Yeah, great. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Cheers.